It's true that the state seeks to protect itself, but a democratic state also needs a vibrant public sphere and an engaged civic culture to ensure that state power remains accountable to citizens. In a constitutional democracy, popular sovereignty is a source of political authority, while parliament is its constitutional expression. Democratic movements derive their legitimacy from shaping public opinion and holding governments accountable, not from substituting themselves for constitutional institutions. On the other hand, also, instead of just demanding the resignation of ministers through referendum-style mobilization, the Sonam Wangchuk-led movement could focus on securing systematic reforms in educational governance, independent oversight of examinations, student welfare and institutional accountability, thereby deepening rather than destabilizing constitutional democracy. The question is not whether the street can replace parliament, but whether the street can strengthen constitutional democracy by making its institutions more accountable equally. Governments and political parties must look beyond immediate electoral gains or losses and respond to genuine civic concerns through dialogue and institutional reform. But there is a larger issue about the nature of protest. What is the protest telling us? It is a postmodern movement or a digital activism is question number one. Is it the power of the powerless? Is the second issue. Does it represent hybrid form of collective action? Is it pure play Gen Z protest? Does it mark an evolution in India's tradition of protests? Then are these protests blending postmodernism with Gandhian philosophy? Social media is the principal form of engagement, but participants also blend hunger strikes and peaceful marches. Traditional intermediaries are absent, and network participation is the form rather than hierarchical system that is in place in other places. Protest is decentralized rather than organization-led. It is leader-led rather than cadre-based. Movement is personalized and emotionally driven. Protests are digitally coordinated with rapid mobilization, like in cases of flash mobs. Now, can digitally empowered citizens become empowered civic actors? On this issue, I have two very distinguished guests. I am joined by Professor Makrand R. Paranjpe from Sri Aurobindo Chair, Vedra University, and he joins me live from Tampa Bay region, Florida. Thank you so much, sir. And I am joined by Professor Ashwini Kumar, author, a prolific writer, and a poet. I thank both of you, but my question remains very simple. And I'll go to Professor Paranjpe first and then to Professor Ashwini Kumar. Can our democracy, sir, sustain dissent? And why do populist governments sometimes behave or start to behave undemocratically?
Yes, it's a very important question. And the way in which our parliamentary style democracy functions has been, called by a distinguished Sri Lankan theorist and political historian. He coined the term Eastminster model. So it's not the Westminster. You might have heard the new British Prime Minister's speech yesterday, right in front of 10 Downing Street. And you see, the Westminster model responds a little differently from the Eastminster. In the Eastminster model, even journalists, veteran journalists, yourself included, I'm sure, haven't escaped the occasional tear gas shell or even maybe the water cannon. So, what I'm trying to say is that the modes of protest have changed, but the state has to be responsive. So, from a distance, Kartikeya, what I see is the disinformation fog, the way in which these narratives are spun and twisted. But I can tell you one thing for sure as someone who's been in the education sector lifelong, that there is true discontent. There is a real problem in the Indian education sector. And to put it, very directly, there are, mafias, it would seem, from the nursery to the coaching camps or the coaching colonies in Kota and elsewhere, which seem to be running this whole racket of how to crack these entrance exams. And technology is not the solution, you see. There is scam after scam. Let's not forget the Vyapam scam in Madhya Pradesh. And the leaks are so pervasive. Even the JEE has been leaked. I've taught at an IIT. I was at IIT Delhi, and we would never have imagined the JEE leaking. So what I'm trying to say is the rot is much deeper, and therefore this Andolan GV Rajniti of demanding some minister's resignation or the other, to me, is really besides the point. It's really low-hanging fruit. They can easily reshuffle, the cabinet and seemingly address these demands. But the real rot is deeper. And if it's not just the education sector, there are land mafias, there is a decentralized corruption apparatus. You see, construction mafias, you name it. Everywhere there seems to be a small group of people. We just saw the Ram Mandir, the so-called Chanda Chori. And there is one theory that all of this is just to distract from that. So, to sum up what I'm trying to say is obviously, even the Eastminster style parliamentary democracy has to be responsive and will be. But let's have a little more idealism. Let's go to the root issues. Let's not over politicize. And to the younger students, once again, I don't know how many are really students. Some are called Andolan GVs. I was in the middle of these protests in JNU, and I can tell you, no side is innocent. But the most important thing I want to say, and that goes back to your initial, which I thought was a very sensitive, point by point, discussion map for us, which is that the power of the moral force hasn't declined. From Gandhiji to Anna Hazare, prior to that, JP, to today, we still need a so-called moral figure who is above politics. And I'm not sure whether Sonam Wangchuk can actually fulfill that role.
Okay.
But it's there. But it's there.
The moral arc. You're talking about the moral arc. Professor Ashwini Kumar, do you think that protests in last 20 years have evolved in a different direction? Is it because of such technology? Like wars change because of technology, gunpowder, drones, or is it because of a networked society that has evolved? And this is to borrow from you, this postmodernism mimicking some aspects of Gandhian protests. How does that happen, sir? Or why does that happen, sir?
Yeah, I mean, like these are fundamental questions. Before I say anything, I would like to, say at the very outset that I really agree with Makarand's, profoundly interesting formulations and reflections, And you forgot to mention that, we are fellow poets also. Makarand, so I can see in Makarand today, the poetic flourish, the poetic flourish, And that poetic flourish, to begin with, is defining the way India's republic is being reimagined. I hope I'm also addressing Makarand and Karthikeya, both of you. This is also opportunity for us, whether we look at, the medium, the mode, the means of, you see, I'm a little uncomfortable, as Makarand is aware, of the term protest, I mean, but of late, if you look at Indian history, Gandhiji never said that, it's kind of a protest, He went into, a mode, in a spiritual mode, So will this postmodern, form of protest or civic engagement, let's put it more positively and perhaps, less negatively, is kind of a new mode of civic engagement where the protesters, or the activists, or the mobilizers, are trying to use what I call collectivism, collectivism. And this is part of the greater, formulation in terms of, Bauman's thesis of liquid modernity. That's happening all over, east to west, north, south, everywhere, Wherever there is an internet or you have a smartphone, you can become, you can generate your, cycles of civic energies. So that's very different from 19th century social movement or even from Gandhian social movement, Or even Jayaprakash Narayan, as a child, I have seen, as a school-going student, I have seen anti-emergency in Patna Gandhi Maidan, where JP was trying to use a different medium and a different way of, energizing people against the dictatorship. So let me just, summarize what I said. The postmodern, has some positive elements, but on the other hand, it doesn't raise the issue what Makarand started out with, the deeper, and the fundamental issues, The fundamental issues today is our education system. Just look at the quota. We have worked on quota, has become suicide capital. Can we fix it? Can we, stop privatization of schools, colleges, etc., etc.? Kartikeya, look at the anger, look at the discontent, where it is coming from. The liberalization, or what we call golden goose, the whole obsession with the golden goose of the gains of liberalization has halted, not only halted, but also corrupted education. So these symptoms, the leakage, Kartikeya, let me conclude here. The leakages are actually symptoms of a larger malice, I mean, this is my 40th years of as a university professor or as a teacher in the country.